Oh, right. We are live. This is Jeff Macke live. I'm Spencer Israel. The other guy is Jeff Macke. Jeff, today we're talking all about Amazon. They report earnings tomorrow, the day after we do this video. And you've got a plan to save the company and the stock. Is that right?
Mostly the stock. The company itself is doing incredibly well. I think they have a narrative problem. I blame kind of Andy Jassy for it. To be honest, the spending's gotten out of control, which is one thing. That would make more sense if the fundamental business was directly put at risk in terms of AI or all the things that they're spending on. But if your capex is going up 50%, it kind of takes a lot of the emphasis off the good stuff that's going on because everyone's just like, holy crap, you're spending $200 billion and trashing your balance sheet to launch satellites. Like, hey, what's going on with the real business? If you kind of just compare the performance of Amazon for the last 3 years to basically almost anyone. I mean, they've been underperforming the S&P for an outrageous amount of time as far as Amazon's concerned over the last 3 years. Over the last year, it's just been a story where the companies that are spending capex at this pace, the Walmarts of the world, the Amazons of the world, that narrative's really turned. It used to be a good thing to spend and that they're pursuing these opportunities. Now, as you can see, Amazon is just dead ass flat. They announced that $200 billion spending plan at the beginning of the year that tanked the stock. They kind of had a better story in the last report, but it clearly is not washing with Wall Street. They clearly don't have confidence that Amazon's putting this money to work in a way that kind of makes sense. That despite the fact that on the retail side, things haven't looked this good in years and years. If you're the second biggest retailer in the world growing in the mid-teens, that's just crazy. Prime is just an unbelievable cash machine. But if it's all going into a startup for AI and rocketry, I'm not that fired up.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we've sort of come to this capex crossroads. It's not just Amazon; it's all the Mag 7, right? And at the end of the day, what is the job of a CEO? It's to allocate capital in the most efficient way possible. And everyone is sort of looking around like, can these companies really keep spending and increasing their spending on AI the way they say they're going to, and actually see a profit from that down the line? No one's really sure, right? So what's funny, since you mentioned the capex, and we'll get to that a little bit later, but on the capex front, Amazon, they were not the first to go ham on AI spending. They were actually lagging pretty hard behind Alphabet and Microsoft off the bat. This is a couple years ago now. And I recall them being punished for that. And then they said, okay, we hear you, Wall Street. We're going to start spending a lot more on AI. Watch us. And they did. And now they're kind of being punished again. So they're kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't. So
yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's they never were screaming on the cap. The thing is that the other companies, if you're Google, you clearly have to be involved with AI because your search is just going away.
Right.
That's going to be, it's an existential risk to your company. If you're Amazon and you have a lot of really good businesses working on it, you need to make the case. It made sense that they're a little slower kind of out of the gate to chase the opportunity. What they have to justify is going from relatively zero to 200 billion, almost all of it dedicated directly to AI, without again telling me why I should be excited about this. AWS is going to go 32%. That's great. You're spending 50% more every year for the last 3 years to pursue this opportunity. So I would like to see it grow even faster. I mean, you don't need a one-to-one payoff, but you need some sort of payoff, particularly if you're Amazon. You at the end of the day, 70%, give or take, of your revenues come from just doing retail, which they do really well. But to your point, you've seen the worm really turn. I mean, that's Apple, Amazon, Apple of everybody. They haven't spent, they're trying to make Siri like basically be able to talk to you at all. So they've had kind of a prototype of AI and haven't done anything with it. Took a ton of crap for that. It turns out that is more respected as the strategy right now. What they're going to do is just sell a gazillion phones. They announce at the exact same time that Amazon does. They're going to say, we just sold an unbelievable number of consumer products and made just a shitload of money on that and subscriptions. That, thank you.
Yeah. This chart is basically showing the market rewarding Apple for not spending all their money on AI, and the market punishing Amazon for clearly spending a lot more than they're comfortable with. So, what about when we look at sort of their just Amazon compared to their more direct peers, right? Maybe that's not true. They have a lot of direct peers. They're Amazon. They're in everything.
They're in everything, right?
They're direct retail peers, and it's not as if Walmart and Target aren't doing stuff with AI. They are to an extent, but to nowhere near the extent that Amazon is, because Walmart and Target are not retail companies that are disguised as tech conglomerates, right?
Well, and Target also illustrates the point, and I include them there just because it's just been such a glorious stock this year, and I'm just so tickled with it, and so any excuse, but also because they've increased their capex quite a bit by Target standards. Relatively small amount of that is going into anything that would be kind of AI related. They haven't inflated it. They're just investing in the stores. They're going to improve their actual operation. And, Wall Street kind of looks at that and says, boy, I hope you design good new stores and improve the places and clean them up. As you're starting to see that happen in the stores, that's good enough for the stock. That's a decent narrative. Look, I'm spending money for X and that's going to create Y. And that's why you buy our stock. And that's the story. With Jassy, it's not enough, clearly, just to say agentic shopping. It's going to be easier to buy stuff on Amazon. The growth there has been incredible. It has a little to do with, it's not as though you can really just say all spending is bad. But Amazon's traditionally, they've grown like a spider into everything from just being the store to being the supply chain to being a subscription service. It's all been kind of sequential. It's been more logical. This is a huge leap of faith, and Jassy's got to convince the people listening on the other side that it makes sense, that this is kind of a rational progression, that, he needs to fill in some of the blanks between, again, I know I keep coming back to it, but Amazon's talking about launching satellites because they're going to come up with, a competitor to Starlink, which is cool. That's pretty far afield from books. So put those together.
All right, Jeff, I think that ship has sailed. I think Amazon as a bookseller, that ship has sailed, right?
Right. But my point is, it sailed quite a while ago, but they went from books to what if we sold other products, to what if we own the whole supply chain, to what if we charged people a subscription fee to have slightly better service. Those are progressions. To leap from why don't we just become kind of an online service that's just, again, it's a leap of faith. You're seeing a multiple for Amazon of 26 for a company that's growing in the mid-teens just on retail. No one else is doing that. It's exceptional, unbelievable performance. And they're actually kind of getting hit, arguably, because of people just don't trust the spending. You could pull back, or it's really a narrative issue. They're not going to stop the spending. They're decent allocators of capital, but Wall Street's clearly sick of this crap, where it's just a story of the opportunity is really big, and so we're going to spend endlessly on it. Take our word for it. This is going to be awesome. That's fine if your stock is generally trending up. If you're underperforming the S&P 500 for the last 5 years, if you're kind of been dead money for a while, 3 years, that's not good. That's not what Amazon's chart's supposed to look like. So it's a much better than average company. The stock is performing much worse than average for an extended period of time. That's a problem.
This is a great chart, but even if you go back further, if you just look at the performance of the Mag 7 against the S&P, go back to, let's just say COVID, right? Just to pick an arbitrary day, Amazon's getting destroyed, right? Amazon, since COVID, is up 70, 80-ish%, give or take, right? Which is far and away the worst of the Mag 7 stocks. It's not even close. Second, it will be Microsoft. They're up 110%, right? So, this is a long-term laggard of the S&P 500. You have this chart going back 3 years, but it's been lagging for more than that, Jeff. It's been lagging for how
Yep.
far back do I got to go here?
Fair enough. I
Um,
mean, pick a time frame, and my point is, it's a much better company than that. It's I realize it got a little big, but 26 times earnings for a company as good at their core operation as they are is it's that's cheap. That's a discount.
yeah,
And they're of the Mag 7, how clean a fit are they there? Because it's Amazon into everything, but they're in a much different business than Microsoft. They aren't the same business as Google.
February 20. You have to go back to February 2020 to and really Amazon has underperformed the broader market since then. That's that qualifies as a long-term trend as far as I'm concerned, right? That's
and
five
that's
and a
during
half
a time
years.
where fundamentally they have been on an absolute heater. They took so much damn share. I mean, it's not as though the COVID period was a nightmare for Amazon just being a retailer that actually could ship things to people's houses. Are you shitting me? I mean, it's they make a lot more money. They're a much bigger, better company now. But it's they're doing groceries every day. I mean, it's just incredible stuff. This should be 40 times earnings. I think that it's a narrative problem, and I think they have to either make a much better case for this is why we're spending 200 freaking $1 billion this year, and it's probably going to be higher next year. I'd like them to remove that last part that is always kind of hanging there when they talk about this, and just make the case for what they're doing with their core business, and at least kind of connect the dots a little bit. Because like I said, you can connect the dots easily from selling books to Prime subscriptions to even the network television to right down to football games. But the stuff they're doing now sounds like a much different business and a really expensive one.
So this is a chart of the Amazon capex, or going back to this is annual capex going back to 22. So in 22 they spent $58 billion, which is a lot, and they're guiding $200 billion this year.
Yep. And probably going higher than that. I mean,
Yeah,
it's that sort of kind of dangling. It's 200 billion now, unless we see better opportunities out there. It's again, you just take this into it's not the company I invested in territory pretty fast there. If you don't make it make sense, because it's not clear they should be a Mag 7 stock. Ultimately, they're just a really good retailer that owns a ton of the supply chain and have been a huge business. And I think they're the best allocators of capital historically since like Berkshire Hathaway. I mean, I think they've
yeah,
done a tremendous job over the years. Like you say, 58 billion was a lot. They kind of recreated a better U.S. postal service,
yeah.
like from scratch. That's a pretty
Amazon,
cool accomplishment.
Amazon is one of the great companies of our time, of all time, right?
Oh, absolute all time. UPS reported yesterday, it's like, yeah, we're still just, we do a lot of brown stuff and we're GDP dependent. You would think UPS would have benefited quite a bit from moving from like 4% of stuff is bought online to the current 25%, and yet they haven't. Amazon captured that whole supply chain. So, brilliant allocators of capital. If you think about how many Amazon vans you see now versus what they were doing
A lot,
before,
a lot.
tons, and they're getting stuff to your house in 3 hours. That doesn't even make sense. It seems like it shouldn't be a possible thing to do. Really super good, but that's not what they're spending on. They're spending on crap that I don't understand. And so,
So this right here, this is your prescription to save Amazon stock. It's
to just not have the stock do the crater thing that it's been doing freaking almost every quarter, just some sort of limit. Put a cap on this. We see spending going down from 200 billion next year. As we complete the build out of all these projects that we're doing, as opposed to just this open ended. We're buying every cornfield in the Midwest and turning it into a power station. They just the traditional business growth. It's okay to talk about the fact that you're going to grow your sales at 13% and you're the second largest retailer on earth. Like, mention that. Talk about it's the other lines of business are crushing, and just better communication on the payoff. I just need to hear a better story from them. The numbers I think will be just fine. there's absolutely no reason to expect that the consumer was going to disappoint and didn't show up for Prime Day. That's just not a thing you worry about. I mean, they couldn't be executing better. The stock's a piece of crap. There's got to be a solution to this. And I think it's a little bit how they're spending, but B, okay, you guys know your business better than I do. Explain it to me on how you're spending. That's the second part's really the job they have to do.
I mean, they've done that to an extent, right? Maybe as best they can, because maybe they don't know, Jeff, right? I mean, it's hard.
Okay, fair enough. So if you don't know, why don't you send that 200 billion to me? I'm a shareholder. You can get me a dividend. You can buy back stock.
Oh, that's true. I suppose
we don't know. It's this is $1 trillion, multiple trillion company. They got to know. You should be able to explain that relatively easily. Why we're putting we're just going to roll the dice completely because we think the opportunity, which I'm not going to lay out what that is. It's big though. And that's where the 200 billion is going.
Jeff, I know that Amazon is sort of a forever buy and hold, but like tactically, short term speaking, at what point we're at 230 right now? At what point are you interested in this thing on the long side?
Anything sub 200, it would get me to buy again, if for no other reason than every time it goes there, it's kind of drifted its way up to 230. The question is what gets it to 3, which is not it's I think once they kind of batten down the hatch a little bit on spending or show just the returns that they're going to get in a more specific way than what they've talked about in the past, it'll start moving again. They're just too good a company at what they do to let this perception that they're throwing it all away on doing stuff that they don't really know anything about yet. They need to lay that out clear. So under $200, it's just too cheap to ignore. You get to about 20 times earnings. That's just really cheap for a company growing this fast, at least in every respect, except for buying magic beans at the capex store.
Well, they're at 27 times earnings right now. So yeah, all right.
Take it down 10, 15%. I don't know. It's big. That's lower than Walmart. That's lower than quite a few companies. That's just cheap for a company that's growing in the mid-teens on that would be cheap if they were the Gap.
We should point out that the past few years, the earnings reactions to the stock have been negative more often than not. With the notable exception of October of 25, this stock has really had negative reactions each of the last, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the last 7 quarters, right? So regardless, we know it's as much about what the company says as is about what the reaction to what the company says, and the reactions have not been good. So
and that 25 quarter, that was when that's when AWS growth kicked up again. But now that's kind of built in. They're looking for 30%. So again, which is extraordinary growth, but if it's costing you a 50% increase in capex every year, eventually you just are going to run out of money. There's not enough money on the planet to support that kind of increase in capex.
I mean, look, we know what they're going to say. They're going to say record revenues and record earnings because every quarter is a record, right? So it's not about that. But it is, to your point, it is probably about the capex, right? So we'll find out tomorrow. This should be fun.
We will, and it'll be a knee-jerk reaction. Again, it's in terms of execution, it's an extraordinary company in terms of Jassie's ability to convey this story in a way that doesn't get the stock either brutalized or just flatlined. They got to do better.
All right. Well, wake up, Amazon. We're waiting for a new all-time high, which actually was not that long ago. It's been a couple months. It feels like longer than that, but no, it wasn't that long ago that we were at 280. So we'll see what happens tomorrow when they report. Jeff Macke will have all the analysis and his takes on the report for his members of his portfolio, which you can get by using the link in the description on YouTube. You can get his trades, find out what he's buying, what he's selling, and he keeps the best takes, the hottest takes, and the flyest analysis for his members there. So You can join using that link. And Jeff, we will see what happens, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Absolutely, brother. We'll see you then.
All right.